know you're here about the Vermont registration loophole. This has been something people have been using for getting a title for vehicle for many, many years. You saw it on Car and Driver. You saw it on Haggerty Insurance. In fact, it was an old joke. Some people said the Vermont DMV is America's DMV. That was the headline of an article. But you're probably here because you have a vehicle that's registered in Vermont, but you don't live in Vermont. You have a Vermont license plate. It's a green license plate with white writing. You probably used it to get a registration for a vehicle many years ago, or maybe last year. And maybe when you originally got that, you were planning on switching it over to your state right away, getting a title in your state. You probably had just a bill of sale and used this as a loophole to get something with your name on it when you only had a bill of sale, and you found out your state didn't give out titles with a bill of sale. So you went to Vermont. But now you're facing a dilemma. You probably found out that after many, many years of predicting this, as we did, you watch on our channel, you see on our other resources, Vermont finally canceled and banned this process. It's over. Vermont DMV loophole, the party's over. No more Vermont DMV bill of sale only registration. So what does that mean for you? If you already have a Vermont registration, you might be thinking, well, it's just going to keep renewing it. Well, that's not going to work. They're not going to renew registrations anymore. If you look at the link you see on the screen, this is the form that now you have to use to get a out-of-station registration. What it says is, in concert with other state jurisdictions. It's important to see that, because the reason they did this is because the other states didn't want people using this loophole to evade things in your home state. So they finally put the pressure on Vermont Department of Motor Vehicles and told them this anymore. So what they're going to do is evaluate all out-of-state transaction based on your home state laws. What does that mean? What it means is, before they will issue a new or renewal registration for an out-of-state resident, you have to get this form signed. Completion of this form is now required before the DMV processes your application. And we'll tell you what this form is. We'll also tell you what you can do about it, what you can now do with your vehicle or not do. We'll cover that. But let's first look at this form. What you have to do is, you have to have the bottom portion of this form completed by a Department of Motor Vehicles or a comparable agency in your home state. So what it means by comparable agency states the agency that issues titles is called Department of Motor Vehicles. Some states it's called Bureau of Motor Vehicles. In some states it's called Department of Transportation. Whatever state agency issues titles, they have to sign this form. What does it say? It says, by my signature, I am certifying that the state of blank, whatever state you're in, does not, bold, underline, residents to register in our state. So you would have to go to your DMV. Let's say you live in Iowa. In your Iowa DMV executive, manager, employee has to sign it saying, we don't require our residents to register in our state. Well, guess what? There's no states that allow that. There's a few states that allow dual residency or dual vehicles if you have a vacation home or something else, but it's not going to work because your employee you talk to is going to ask you, why are you registering in Vermont if your vehicle's here, right? You would have to convince them that your vehicle's only going to be in Vermont. You're never going to drive it in your state, and they're not going to sign it, right? So what that means is, in order to renew your registration, you would have to convince some DMV agent in your state to sign this form, which they're not going to do. The reason why they're not going to is because your state DMV is one of the reasons that Vermont has this. Remember, in concert with other state jurisdictions. Which states are there? All of them. Every year there are 2 conferences for DMV commissioners, and for the last 4 or 5 years, all the states have been telling Vermont, will you please stop this? Don't let people do this anymore. So all the states were trying to force them to do it. It took them a while to finally give in because Vermont was making a lot of money off this. they were making a lot of sales tax money, registration money from all over the country. So now that gravy train's over for Vermont. So they delayed as long as they could, but now they have to delay it. So now what do you do? What do you do? Well, let's suppose you have a Vermont registration license plate on your car. Now, first of all, the idea when this process was used was not to put that plate on your car and drive around with it. It was designed to give you a piece of paper, that Vermont registration, which you could then bring to your state to exchange for a title. That's what it was designed to do. However, a lot of people said, wait a minute, I already got a license plate. I already have this registration. Why not just use it? Why do I need to switch it over to my state, figuring that you'll save some money or you can get away with something? The problem now is, if you are now trying to use that piece of paper to convince your state to give you a title with your name on it from your state, let's say you live in Iowa, you bring this Vermont registration, that date is no longer like within the last month. Now it's a year or 2 or 3 years old. So two things are going to happen which may not be good. First is they might charge you late fees for not registering your vehicle within 30 days from becoming a resident. That could be expensive. The other thing is most states don't charge taxes the same way that Vermont does. Vermont charges taxes based on book value. They don't care what you paid for it. They don't care what your bill of sale says. They look up in the book that VIN number and say, look, I don't care if you paid $1,000 for it. The book says it's worth $10,000. You pay tax on that $10,000. So that was probably something you had to face when you did Vermont. But if you would switch it over to your state right away, you would not have to pay tax twice because your state would see, well, they already paid tax. It's within the last 6 months, 8 months. So you don't have to pay tax again. But now if your registration is more than a year old, you have to pay tax again in your state if you do this process. Remember, our website, cartitles.com, you see it on the screen, will give you some other instructions. But let's go through those here first. Now you have a registration that's a year old. So now they're not going to let you get a credit for those taxes. Plus, your state probably would have charged you tax on your bill of sale, which might have been $1,000. But now they're going to see this Vermont registration. It's more than a year old. They're going to say, well, that's the value now because it's on your paperwork. The Vermont says it's worth $10,000, so we're saying it's worth $10,000. Now you have to pay tax at the higher amount, right? The other thing is, if your vehicle is not currently registered, meaning that if that Vermont registration is expired, then it may not be valid. Your state might not accept it. So option number one is to take your registration that you have from Vermont, get a title application for your state, put a assignment of transfer along with it, put those 3 documents together, bring them to your state and apply for a registration title, see what happens. Might work. For more detailed instructions, check out our website, cartitles.com. You'll see a lot more information there. You can do it yourself for free. We help do-it-yourselfers. We also have a title service. If you want us to assist with that, we can. Look for a link for Vermont renewals. We have a special package for Vermont renewals. So try that first. Plan B, if that doesn't work, maybe your registration is expired. Maybe the tax is too much. Maybe your state won't accept it, period, just because they say, no, too bad. We don't want this registration from Vermont. We know you scammed us. Plan B is to do a bonded title. Now, I know what you're saying. Before you bail, a bonded title, sometimes people have the misunderstanding that you have to pay big money to do that. They read something somewhere, or they heard on the internet or on some website, I have to pay 1.5 times the value of the vehicle to do a bond. For example, if you have a $6,000 vehicle, people think, well, 1.5 times 6,000, 1.5 times is $9,000. I have to pay $9,000 to get a bonded title. That's not how it works. You have to get a surety bond in the amount of that much, amount of $9,000. But a surety bond for vehicles that are less than $10,000 normally costs about $100. You can check out our website, probonds.com, probonds, to get more information on bond prices, but it's not going to cost you $9,000. It's probably going to cost you $100 for most vehicles to get a bond. If you have a $20,000 car, it might cost you $200, but it's not a big deal. Plan B is a bonded title. Now, you might not want to do a bonded title for whatever reason. You might be in a state that doesn't allow bonded titles. There's 8 states that don't let you do bonded titles. If that's the case, Plan C, backup option, last resort, is to do a magistrate title, or sometimes called a court clerk title or court order title. Now, again, don't panic. This is not a court process like Law and Order, where it's a big thing with judge and jury and you have to go sit in a court and all. It doesn't work that way. The way it works is you prepare 4 documents. And again, our website, cartitles.com, has those documents available for free to download, blank ones for do-it-yourselfers. We have videos that'll walk you through it. We also have title service. If you want us to assist with it, we can do that too. But here's how it works. You prepare a petition that says, I swear I'm the owner of this vehicle. I want you, the court clerk, to sign an order saying that I'm the owner. You get that court paper signed by the clerk or by the magistrate or by the judge. You slap it on the counter at your DMV, and they have to give you a title. End of story. Now, along with that petition, you have to attach what's called an affidavit. That's your story of how you got the vehicle. I bought the car on Craigslist for $1,000. Guy gave me a bill of sale. I didn't get any title. That's all you got to do. Your affidavit. Attach that to it. You also have to put with it what's called a letter of non-interest. What that means is you're saying, I swear to God, I don't know anybody else looking for this vehicle. No one's trying to find it. It's not out for repo. It's not like no other person's trying to get it. So that way you're saying, I don't think there's any claims against this car. Along with that, you put a title application. You put those 4 documents together. You mail them to the court. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to walk in the door. You can mail them. 9 times out of 10, they look at it. They might do some research on the vehicle, make sure it's not stolen, make sure there's no liens, make sure it's not like parts only branded title. And they sign it. They give it to you. You're done. Sometimes they want you to walk in the door and raise your right hand in front of the clerk to swear that your information is true under oath. They're not probably going to make you come into some big court case and testify and everything. That's not how it works. They don't want big court cases, right? This is a simple thing. We also recommend sending it by mail. Don't bring it in person. Send it by mail. And you can find out on our website why that's the case. So you have options. If you have a Vermont registration that's expiring, start the process early. Don't wait for it to expire before you do this, because it might make it harder to do. Don't try to do plan A right before it's going to expire, because if it doesn't work, the other things might be tough to do. Look, there are some possibilities that if you mail your registration renewal in, Vermont might let it slide. We're hearing that 5 or 10% of people that do it will get the renewal. Vermont is going through some turmoil right now. There was a lot of floods. There was rivers that overflowed. Some DMVs were shut down. Because of that, there's some backlog of paperwork, and some things are getting through the cracks, right? But it's probably not going to work. But if you want to try that first, do it. But don't wait too long, because if it does expire, now these other things might not work. So you do have options if your registration is about to expire. The party's over. You can see right here what it says. Your DMV has to certify that the laws do not require the applicant to register the vehicle there in your state. All states require residents to register in their home state. They don't let you pick and choose states, right? So this is not going to work. I mean, this form is there just in case, they're not saying it's banned, but they're saying these are the rules. This is their way of not violating interstate commerce laws, right? If you have a valid document from one state, it's supposed to be valid in another state. This is their way of saying, well, it's valid. We just won't renew it. We just won't give you one. Don't panic. If you have a Vermont registration, if it's valid, you have some options. You can try to transfer it to your state. You do a transfer, you do an assignment, you do a title application. It might work. Probably will. Some states are giving people a hard time because they're offended that you tried to evade them for a year or two or three. Some states are giving you a grace period. It's almost like, um, some kind of abatement period, amnesty period, to let people like come clean and put the car in your state. So try that first. It'll be the cheapest way to go. And then if that doesn't work, try bonded title. If that doesn't work, court order title. Whatever you do, use our website as a free consumer resource. We love to help do-it-yourselfers. We know how hard it is to get titles. We know what kind of problems come up. We know how much bureaucracy it is. So we try to streamline it. If you want to do it yourself, use our documents, use our forms, use our videos. If you want help, we can help with that too. But this is something that was kind of a stealth behind the scenes process for a long time. What really ruined it was in about 2016 or 15 or 16, there was a bunch of articles that came out. Road and Track, Haggerty Insurance, Jalopnik had articles that basically told the whole world about this. And right then, other states started to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't want this. Some of them put signs on the window of the DMV. Look, we're not taking these anymore. Some of them told people it was a fraud. Florida had a fraud alert on their DMV website for Vermont registrations. They called it a fraud. Really wasn't, but some people were doing fraud with it. They were trying to evade taxes or evade inspection or evade emissions. It was a good tool to use to try to help with paperwork problems, but some people abused the process. That's what ruined it. So you have options. Don't make the problem worse. Don't drive with an expired registration. Get it handled. You'll be fine. As long as you have a legitimate vehicle, you can solve this. If you have questions, you can email our help desk. help@cartitles.com is the email. You'll see that on our website. We have everything from do-it-yourselfers, free resources. We have title service. We even have consultations. You can book a consultation with a title agent to help walk you through this. So use the website, Car Titles, as a way to navigate this. We're glad to help. We know how hard it is to get titles. We want you to get the car legally in your name, because if it's your car, you deserve to have a title one way